Hi, I'm Dr. Paul Jenkins. Today I'm going to share with you a professional psychologist's advice on how to quickly motivate yourself. As a professional psychologist with almost 3 decades of clinical experience, I've paid attention to what makes people click. What I'm about to share with you is a powerful model that will help you to understand how to operate the equipment of your own mind. It is what it is. Does that irritate and annoy you too? It probably depends on who's saying it and why, but we hear that phrase all the time. It is what it is. That can be kind of a give up, sort of a, I don't have any control over anything. It is what it is. But how we're going to handle that today is simply as an acknowledgement of the way things are. Right now, it's who you are, it's where you are, it's who you're with, it's what you have, it's the way things are without changing anything. It is what it is. And we're starting there because our circumstances create the context in which everything else is going to happen. But here's what we've learned in psychology. Circumstances are neutral. Wait, could that possibly be true? What about the things that are difficult, painful, frustrating, annoying? They're still neutral. When I say that circumstances are neutral, I'm not saying that they're painless. I'm not saying that they're easy. I'm simply putting them on a spectrum or a continuum. And think about this for a moment. No matter what it is for you, it's right here on a spectrum that includes better and worse. In other words, whatever it is that you're experiencing, think about your finances, your relationship, your health, whatever it is, it's right here. Could it be better? Oh yeah. You know it could be better, right? No matter how good it seems, it could always be better. Well, could it be worse? Yeah, see, that's true too. And don't take my word for this. I want you to run it through your own filters and see if that's true. No matter how bad things seem, it could always be worse, right? Sometimes I try to think of the worst thing I can imagine. And some of my experience leads me back to September 11th, 2001. I remember those planes crashing into those buildings and the death and the destruction that happened on that terrorist attack. One more casualty. One more airplane, one more building, one more death. It could always be worse. As bad as that was, it could always be worse. So when I say circumstances are neutral, I'm not trying to diminish the pain, the difficulty, the challenge of any particular circumstance. I'm simply acknowledging it is what it is. It could always be better. It could always be worse. You with me? Now that we've established that circumstances are neutral, let's go to our thinking next. Because we always think about our circumstances, and our thinking is not neutral. In fact, our thinking often comes with a lot of emotional charge to it. I also want to point out here that we are always thinking. We can't turn it off any more than we can turn off gravity. When's the last time you got up in the morning and thought, I wonder if gravity's on today? You don't do that because it's constantly on. And in a similar way, so is our thinking. It's always on. We can't turn it off. And my observation as a professional psychologist is either we get in control of our thinking, or our thinking will control us. Because what we think creates what we feel, and then what we feel affects what we do, and that's what creates our results. And this turns into a pattern and a cycle that sometimes can trap us until we stop to do the metacognition, to think about our own thinking. What that does is it creates a little space, and in that space is where choice exists. That's going to be pretty important as we work on our own motivation. And next I'm going to share with you a model, but before I get to that, would you just take a moment to click that subscribe button? Because that's going to put you in the loop for more videos to help you with this topic. And I promise I'll bring you more videos. You just hit the subscribe button. Sound like a good deal? Now the model that I'm going to go over next, you're going to want a copy of this as well. This is the model that I teach in all of my trainings and coaching programs. You can pick up a copy of this at the URL shown on the screen right now, drpauljenkins.com/the model, all one word, and I'll just put a PDF copy of this right in your inbox so that you can follow along with what it is that we're talking about here. Acknowledging that it is what it is and our circumstances are neutral, and realizing that our thinking about those circumstances definitely not neutral, it's very emotionally charged. Let's take a look at two aspects of thinking. These are processes that are going on in your mind all of the time. I'll be referring to this model to introduce what those are. Let's look at the bottom half of this model, which has to do with a process I call evaluation. Evaluation means judgment. You can't turn it off. You're constantly judging your life. You're constantly judging your family, your coworkers. You're judging the circumstances of our environment and the economy and the government and everything that's going on. You can't turn it off. It's like gravity. Now, the word evaluation implies comparison with some standard. And what the model points out here is that when we judge what it is, which I put right in the middle of the model, we have to compare it in our mind to some standard in order to make our judgment. Well, if we compare what it is to something better, how do we feel? We don't feel so good about what we've got. But on the other side of that, what if we compare what it is to something worse? Then how do we feel? Well, we feel better about what we've got. And I'm not here to tell you how to think. I don't have that kind of authority. I just want you to see that you are thinking. And as you turn on that metacognition and think about your thinking, you will see that you are constantly judging and that judgment or evaluation implies comparison with some standard. If you don't have an immediate standard, you'll make one up. And you got a pretty good imagination. This is where we get stuck sometimes in our own thinking. Just notice that it's happening. So based on the model, notice that you're constantly judging and evaluating and comparing, and that affects how you feel. Notice that. Now let's move to the other part of the model. On the top end of this model is a process that I call creation. Creation of what is to be. And that doesn't exist yet. We haven't created it yet. So the only place that it exists currently is in our own imagination. And we already established that you can always imagine something worse than what you've already got. You can also imagine something better than what you've already got. Well, what are you going to go create? What do you expect or anticipate or predict is going to come into your life? Is it going to be something better than what you've already got? Well, what if you were to expect that? How would you feel? Or is it going to be something worse than what you've already got? How would that make you feel? Do you notice? I just want you to see that you are constantly predicting or expecting or creating mentally what is to be. And that affects your feelings. In the model, I'll just share this little piece with you. And when you get your own PDF copy of this, you can make notes on it, print it out, whatever you want to do. When we do a negative evaluation, that creates depression. That's what this bottom right red arrow is all about. When we have a negative prediction of what is to come, that is anxiety. That's this upper left red arrow. Now, that's 30 years of clinical experience in a nutshell. I have basically combined in this model what I've learned about what makes people tick. Now, what does that have to do with motivation? How we judge our circumstances creates the energy that we then use to move forward and create what is to be. In talking about motivation, think about it. If you are depressed, feeling inadequate, inept, not good enough, doing a negative evaluation, how likely are you to go do something positive? Yeah, not so much. In fact, in that energy, you're more likely to make a mess. And tune into that for a moment. You've got the power to make a mess. Have you noticed? And that's not bad news, because if you can make a mess, you can also make a masterpiece. And that's what we're going to try to steer it toward. The best place to start is from a place of gratitude, where you can feel profoundly grateful for the rich, abundant life that you already have. That is a positive evaluation. And from there, from that energy, how likely are you to go do something positive? So much more likely. This is where the upgrade occurs. And that's a little bit of a paradox, because the best way to get an upgrade to your situation is to realize that you don't need one. Kind of a paradox, huh? But this is how we get into what I call the positivity vector, where you can keep yourself moving forward no matter what your circumstances are. Take a moment, if you would, to notice how far you've come. Enjoy the gratitude that you feel when you do a positive evaluation of where you are, you're what it is. And then from that energy, you can move forward and create some really phenomenal things to come. I hope you found that helpful. If you want to move forward with this, cue up that next video, how you can reprogram your mind to stay strong and positive. I've got you on this. I'll see you on the next video.